Chris Chamberlain,
Yep.
Buddhist.
Okay. So I'm a member of SGI UK. I chose a quote to introduce what I'm going to say. This is from our Buddhist mentor and teacher, Daisaku Ikeda, who's 95 now, so he's quite an old man now. He's a Japanese. So this is what he writes in the Sokogakai Buddhist dictionary. The Buddhist idea that everyone possesses the Buddha nature or potential for enlightenment expresses the spirit of profound respect for human beings and leads naturally to a philosophy that deeply treasures life. This in turn can provide a spiritual and philosophical basis for dealing with such modern global issues as the protection of human rights, the preservation of the environment, and the attainment of world peace. In this sense, I believe it is extremely important to understand such Buddhist concepts and consider them in terms of their modern significance. I thought that was a really nice introduction. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to try and do my best. So I've decided to start with, in broad brushstrokes, why do people embrace a religion? And I came up with to connect with something or someone beyond their ordinary perception and enable them to find peace within their own hearts. I don't think anyone can argue with that, can we? No, I don't think so. I was brought up to the age of 12 in this country as a Christian, but I couldn't connect with God or the Holy Spirit or Jesus. As I hit difficulties in my life, my outlook on the world became darker and darker. And then I encountered SGI Buddhism, the chanting of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and I was 31. The moment I began chanting, it was as if a light in my life had been switched on. Buddhism teaches the three proofs: theoretical proof, documentary proof, and actual proof. So first, the theory, trying to get it into a nutshell. I find it intellectually absorbing and exciting. All life, eternally reborn, lifetime after lifetime. Karma, thought or action or habitual behavior, making causes in the material world which create effects that are played out either immediately, i.e., I hit a wall and make my fist bleed, or in this present lifetime that the effects appear, I steal money and maybe I'm found out years later, or in a future lifetime. Two examples. I chain smoke in this life, but I have excellent health and died at a ripe old age of 90. Or I lead a healthy life in this life and then suddenly get throat cancer out of the blue and I die young. Moving from karma to the 10 worlds. The 10 worlds is an explanation or an attempt to explain our consciousness as humans, moving between the lower life states, hell, anger, hunger, animality, through intermediate states of life, tranquility or humanity, rapture or heaven and learning, to the worlds requiring much more effort, realization, bodhisattva and Buddhahood. And Buddhahood is characterized by a state of freedom where an individual can manifest courage, wisdom, and compassion. And anyone can do this by chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo morning and night as the primary practice. So that's the theory, as simply as I can put it. Now the documentary proof, as follows. Shakyamuni, also known as Gautama Buddha, as the story goes, meditated under the Bodhi tree in India and awakened to the true nature of life. He taught for 40 years, which were orally transmitted and then written down in the form of various sutras or teachings. And his penultimate teaching, the Lotus Sutra, was where he instructed his hearers to close and abandon all previous teachings, as they represented partial truths. Myoho Renge Kyo is the Japanese reading of the Chinese title of the Lotus Sutra. And Nam, the first bit, is Sanskrit, and it means devotion to the mystic law of cause and effect, which is the lotus. I can't go into it, obviously, with detail, which Shakyamuni explains in his Lotus Sutra. So reciting this phrase, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, once is equivalent to reading the entire sutra. Okay, Nichiren Daishonin, is the founder of this school of Buddhism. He was a priest in 13th century Japan, and he declared the chanting of this phrase as the correct practice for this age. He also embodied it in a mandala, which SGI and Sohagakkai members chant to morning and evening. And this scroll, which has Namyo Renge-kyo written down the middle, draws out our highest enlightened state of life, Buddhahood. So that's your documentary proof. So we've had theoretical, documentary, finally, actual proof. When we chant Namyo Renge-kyo, we are making the purest cause for our eternal lives. And we are able to take responsibility for our situation or our karma and move forward to create a wonderful new life now and onwards from the moment we chant. When a person starts to chant, they are encouraged to set goals of things they would like to see change and then chant and carry on as normal. I found personally my outlook started to change almost immediately back in 1987. A big change was men stopped disrespecting me. My life became open to the infinite possibilities in this world. I was giving out totally different messages, and I received startlingly different responses from outside. So my life became happier and happier, and my external circumstances transformed. This process continues to happen to this day, 36 years later. I suffer, I chant, I realize my deluded or incorrect attitude, I purify my life, and I feel happy. I help others in their practice along the way. So I live a life full of meaning and even at times of joy. My dear husband, Robert, died suddenly of COVID last year at the age of 69. So I have been grappling with the trauma of sudden death and loss of my soulmate. This is not an easy struggle, but I am winning. Robert, my husband, taught me how to die. And now he is teaching me what death and consequently life means. So for me, this religion is extraordinary and powerful, and it works as a tool which oils the wheels of our cart so we can move ahead without deadlock. And most importantly of all, I believe, one person after another changing their hearts from within is what will gradually change the current of history toward peace. That's it.
Very nice.
Synagogues. Norwich has two Jewish communities, the Norwich Hebrew congregation, which was established in 1750, and the liberal community, which was about 30 years ago. There has been a synagogue in Norwich since 1828, and our current synagogue was built on Earlham Road in 1968, and its communal facilities brought up to date in 2021. It is the home of the Norwich Hebrew congregation. I'm a member of that congregation and will be expressing my personal views on Judaism, which is a traditional but not strictly orthodox. I'm an Ashkenazi Jew whose family comes from Central Europe. Judaism claims to be over 5,000 years old. Our calendar year is 5783. That's an awful number of years, really. We believe in one God, and that's the basis of Jewish belief. This was the first religion to practice this concept. We reject all idolatry, and there are no images within our place of worship. Kings, queens, prophets, and leaders are not idolized. They're only humans like the rest of us. We have a strict moral code based on the 10 Commandments contained in the Torah, that is the 5 books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The Torah also contains 613 laws given by God through Moses for the Jewish people to keep. Stemming from this is our religious practice and idolatry code. Some of these are do's and some of these are don'ts. So it's a mixture of making up a life code. We do not accept Jesus as the Messiah and therefore only read from the Old Testament. Most of us look forward to a messianic age and not for a Messiah. Christianity and Muslims share the same heritage and worship the same God. The 10 Commandments are the basic code for the civilized world, and that is the key to the Jewish way of thinking. We live by these today. Sorry, I've got to turn a page over. Education is an important part of the Jewish faith, as set out by Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 to 41. This is read at almost all services, which include the instructions to teach thy children. Every Jewish child is expected to attend classes to learn basic Hebrew and about the Jewish religion, its moral code, and the dietary laws. Family is perhaps the greatest strength. Our practice is active religion, which revolves around the family life. The synagogue is not only part of the religious ceremonies, because at almost every occasion in the calendar, there is a family service. The most regular one is the Friday night meal to welcome the Sabbath. A Jewish day is from sundown to sundown. It's a short service just before the meal with the lighting of the Sabbath candles and the blessing of wine and bread. There is always a family service at the first evening of Passover, when the story of the Exodus from slavery in Egypt is retold. The Jewish year, the Solemn Day of Atonement plus Sukkot are important Jewish calendar events where the family gather together. In the autumn, there is an 8-day festival of Hanukkah, which is celebrated by celebrating the rededication of the temple after defeat by Antiochus the Greek ruler in 165 BCE, who had wished to destroy the Jewish religion. The Jewish community in Norwich each year celebrates this festival by lighting a giant branch candlestick called the menorah in the front of the forum. You're all very welcome to come and see the wonderful festival lights. Thank you for listening to this brief insight into Jewish religion, and look forward to your questions and comments later this evening.
Hinduism is, first, let's talk, I will talk a bit about Hinduism first. It's world's oldest religion, and it is approximate 10,000 years old. Hinduism is also known, the basic name of Hinduism is Sanatan Dharma. Dharma is the duty, and Sanatan is, which is never ending. Hinduism was not founded by one person, but it is a compilation of many traditions and philosophies, which all these grew in India and around Indus Valley civilization, that side as well. And we believe that religion evolves all the time. Hindus worship a number of gods and minor deities as well. We honor many range of symbols, respect several different holy books, and celebrate a wide variety of traditions. There are more than 1 billion followers of Hinduism who live mainly in India. So what is Sanatan Dharma? Sanatan Dharma means eternal truth. And this truth is universal, which means it applies to all people and to everybody. So like it, you should not, the basic principle I believe in all religion is that you should not tell lies, you should not cheat, you should not hurt anybody. So these are all basic principles of all religion. And that is also, that is the basic fundamental principle of Sanatan Dharma. For Hindus, following Sanatan Dharma means living their lives in such a way that they are always considering their moral choices and making the best decisions they can make. A Hindu view the entire universe as a gift of God, and everything in the universe has God particles in it. That is the fundamental of Hinduism. Hindus also believe that each person is intrinsically divine, and the purpose of life is to seek and realize this divinity within all of us. So what are the basic belief of Hinduism? So Hindus believe in one all-pervasive supreme being, but we worship him in many different forms. Hindus believe in Trinity, which is Brahma, who is the creator of the universe. Vishnu is the preserver, and Shiva is the destroyer of the universe, but destroy in the sense in order to create new things, because we know that whatever is created comes to an end. So when the new things only will be created when the old things goes. Hindus believe that all living beings has soul, which is known as Atma, or we can call it soul or spirit. Atma is eternal and it never dies. Hindus believe that soul reincarnates, evolving through many births until all karmas, all our duties has been resolved. So if we do something wrong, God gives us chance to correct it in our next life. And only then we get the liberation from the cycle of rebirth, and finally we attain moksha, which is unite with God. And God gives us many chances, and all soul gets chance to unite with God. And this process of cycle of rebirth and death is known as samsara. Hindus believe that we should care for all living beings. Everything has, as we believe that everything has soul, so we should care for plants, trees, animals, rivers, our environments, and everything. So in many forms, the tradition is we worship plants and trees as well. It's in form of respecting that thing. So or creating awareness among ourselves. Hindus believe in karma. Karma is the law of cause and effect by which each individual creates his own destiny. The karma is not only your action, but your thoughts and words as well. So bad thought also creates bad karmas. Some Hindus believe that suffering exists due to the bad karma from people's lives, which they may have created at some point in their life. But, in our next slide, God gives us chance to correct it. So Hindus believe also that, killing someone is bad karma, but killing someone in self-defense or to remove bad or evil things from the society is not bad karma, but actually it creates good karma. So if you let things happen, if you're noticing something bad is happening in the society and you let it happen, then it is bad karma. Whereas if you remove it, then it becomes good karma. So karma is, law of karma is important for all Hindus. Then comes dharma. So what is dharma? Dharma is our moral duties, and all Hindus should follow this rule in their life. There are various types of dharma for a Hindu. Some are personal duties, like living a good life, pure life, And some are eternal duties, like maybe it could be reading scriptures, praying to God for self-attainment. So these are our dharmas. Dharmas or duties are expected of all Hindus, and Hindus should live their lives with these in mind. Dharma is one of the 4 main aims of Hindus in life. Following dharma is the main thing in our life. There are many religious books in Hinduism. So there are 4 Vedas, which are the most ancient scriptures. Although it is said that it was written 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, but before that, before the literary writing came into being, it was passed from generation to generation by reciting. So although the written evidence is 2,000 years old, but we believe that it is much older. Whatever it says is written in there, maybe 7, 8, or 10,000 years old. Then there are 18 Puranas, which is historical evidence. Then there are Ramayana, which is a life history of Rama. Then is Mahabharata, which is life history of Lord Krishna. And then there is Gita, which Lord Krishna gave some important examples or put his disciple in the battlefield. So Gita is one of the which incorporates everything, how we should live our life and what is the meaning of life.
A personal view. It's entirely personal. There are some quotes from the Bahai writings in the presentation, but the arrangement, the way in which I offer a few personal comments are entirely personal. I have invoked the spirit of Rainn Wilson, who's a well-known popular culture actor who has appeared in a starring role in the US version of The Office. So without further ado, I'll proceed to the first slide. Okay, so for me, there's a constructive dichotomy in the notion of a higher power. So we have, on the one hand, we have God, the unknowable, the essence, the divine being, which is immensely exalted above every human attribute, such as corporeal existence, ascent and descent, egress and regress. And far be it from his glory that the human tongue should adequately recount his praise, or that human heart comprehend his fathomless mystery. And then contrast it with this: a God who is conscious of his creation, who has a mind, a will, a purpose, and not, as many scientists and materialists believe, an unconscious and determined force operating in the universe. Such a conception of the divine being as the supreme and ever-present reality in the world is not anthropomorphic, for it transcends all human limitations and forms. Then a brief comment on life after death. O Son of Man, thou art my dominion, and my dominion perisheth not. Wherefore fearest thou thy perishing? Thou art my light, and my light shall never be extinguished. Why dost thou dread extinction? Thou art my glory, and my glory fadeth not. Thou art my robe, and my robe shall never be outworn. Abide then in thy love for me, that thou mayest find me in the realm of glory. Then we have a couple of short quotations illustrating the purpose of prayer when joined with action as the result, and action can lead into prayer as well. The prayerful condition is the best of all conditions, for man is in such a state communeth with God, especially when prayer is offered in private and at times when one's mind is free. Indeed, prayer imparteth life. Therefore, strive that your actions day by day may be beautiful prayers. Turn towards God and seek always to do that which is right and noble. Then we have this notion of transcendence, where drops are patterned after seas, Atoms are structured after suns in proportion to their capacities and potentialities. In the reality of drops, seas of divine verses surge, and the essence of atoms, suns of meaning, names and attributes are manifest. Community is really important in religion. The supreme need of humanity is cooperation and reciprocity. The stronger the ties of fellowship and solidarity among men, the greater will be the power of constructiveness and accomplishment in all the planes of human activity. We need a moral compass, don't we? Think ye of all times, at all times, of rendering some service to every member of the human race. Be ye sincerely kind, not in appearance only. Let him do some good to every person whose path he crosseth, and be of some benefit to him. Love is ever so important. It is the heart of the matter. It is heaven's kindly light, the Holy Spirit's eternal breath that vivifieth the human soul. Love is the light that guideth in darkness, the living link that uniteth God with man, that assureth the progress of every illumined soul. Love is that most great law that ruleth this mighty and heavenly cycle, the unique power that bindeth together the diverse elements of this material world, the supreme magnetic force that directeth the movements of the spheres of the celestial realms. Love revealeth with unfailing and limitless power the mysteries latent in the universe. Love is the spirit of life unto the adorned body of mankind, the establisher of true civilization in this mortal world, and the shadow of imperishable glory upon every high-aiming race and nation. This is an expression of what we call the golden rule. Lay not on any soul a load that which you would not wish to be laid upon you, and desire not for anyone the things you would not desire for yourself. And then integral to the notion of religion, in my view, is service. O children of men, know ye not why we have created you all from the same dust? That no one should exalt himself over the other. Ponder at all times in your hearts how ye were created. Since we have created you all from the same substance, it is incumbent on you to be even as one soul, to walk with the same feet, eat with the same mouth, and dwell in the same land, that from your inmost being, by your deeds and actions, the sign of oneness and the essence of detachment shall be made manifest. And finally, we need a strong sense of purpose. And just like the water in these fountains, we must be like the fountain or spring that is continually emptying itself of all that it has and is continually being refilled from an invisible source, to be continually giving out for the good of our fellows, undeterred by fear of poverty, and reliant on the unfailing bounty of the source of all wealth and all good. This is the secret of right living. So all the quotes were taken from the writings. Images were from Unsplash. And any mistakes or misunderstandings or errors are entirely mine. Thank you all.
Good. As I prepare just to share snippets of what Christianity means to me, is already from those I've listened to already, just being aware of how much we all share. So often we pick up on all the differences, and there are categorical differences we've already heard, but so much that we share. And I could very well take Andrew's and some of the other presentations, and put all of those into the values and the ethos behind the Christian faith, I feel. But I won't walk away at this point and take that as an excuse. For myself, being baptized, so that's how somebody becomes part of the family of Christianity. I was baptized as an infant, and some Christians have followed that route. My parents made promises on my behalf that they would bring me up in the Christian faith, that they would serve God through his son Jesus Christ, and my godparents made promises too. And at baptism I had water put over my head, and I was signed with the sign of the cross as a reminder for always, forever, that I am a follower of Jesus, who Christians, and I believe is God's son. So those promises were made for me as an infant. Some Christians, of course, in different branches of Christianity, make those promises for themselves when they're old enough to promise themselves. We have a ceremony in the Church of England, which I've belonged to all my life, called confirmation. So I was confirmed at the age of 13 and revisited the story of Christianity, ready for my preparation to be confirmed. I was looked at the Old Testament and the New Testament and of the Bible, and I was then encouraged to make my baptismal promises again, to promise that for the rest of my life, saying it myself this time, that I wanted to be a follower of Jesus. And that meant a great deal to me. I remember it very clearly, being a very special occasion when the bishop put his hands upon my head and asked for the power of God's Holy Spirit to come upon me. So growing up as a young Christian, really, the Christian faith was shared by others. And I think other speakers tonight have talked about how the power of people who've passed on the faith and is so important. And for me, it was through Sunday school and two particular Christians, two women who just were vibrant in the Christian faith. And they shared the story endlessly, week after week with me. The wonderful story of the Jewish faith, of the Torah books and the other books of the Old Testament, the root of Christianity, and then the stories of Jesus. And I was taught by them about how God sent his son, Jesus, to show that he loved the world so much, and he wanted to, if you like, bring us all back in check when things had gone a bit wrong. And I learned about this person of Jesus. And I was taught that he died for me and for everybody in the world, and that he rose again for me to enable me to live forever after I die. So as Christians, we believe in an eternal life. One of the things that draws me to Christianity is its diversity and the cultural differences, the fact that it's a family all over the world. And although I've grown up mainly in the Church of England, I've had periods where I've tried just about every brand of Christianity. And I always tell children when I'm teaching them about it, it's a bit like pizza, really. You can add to your pizza whatever you like. And for some people, you know, they may wish to fall on their knees, they may wish to chant, they may wish to use silence, they may wish to stand up and dance and wave their arms about, and there's not a right and a wrong, and it's about finding. So I see myself very much, I wouldn't say I'm your classic Christian, really, because I'm a bit of a pilgrim on that journey. I'm always open to new things, and I do believe in different stages of life we come to God in different ways. So the teaching of Jesus is important, I think, to all Christians, certainly to me, and this moral code that we've heard about in the other religions that have been presented to us already this evening. And the words of Jesus: love each other, basically, you know, love one another as I have loved you. And that permeates everything that we do. And the belief that God sent himself in the form of three things. He sent himself as himself, as his son Jesus, and then the Holy Spirit. And that's ever so complicated. And I still, at nearly 63, don't understand it, the Trinity. But the God's Holy Spirit being the extra present, the extra oomph, if you like, when life is really difficult, that his Holy Spirit is always there for us. And that he knows, that God knows each of us individually. I think that's an important Christian belief as well. And that we can talk to him, we can listen for his word, we can listen for what the Holy Spirit's trying to tell us through prayer. And sometimes in life, I must admit, my journey has strayed far away from God, and I've found it really difficult. But there's something there that always brings me back. And I think it's that personalization of God and his son, Jesus.
Morning when we get up, we say a morning prayer. It's a very short one. And normally children recite this, but it has been translated into English by a scholar, and I'll do that first. It's called Japji Sahib. There is one God. He is the supreme truth. He, the creator, is without fear and without hate. He, the omnipresent, pervades the universe. He is not born, nor does he die to be born again. By his grace shalt thou worship him before time itself. There was truth. There was truth when time began to run its course. He was the truth, even now. He is the truth, and evermore shall truth prevail. So that's the prayer translated into English from Gurumukhi or Punjabi language. As you Sikhs believe in one God. Sikhism is a young and diverse religion that originated in Punjab, India, in the 15th century. It's a very young religion. It was created by Guru Nanak, the first guru. Guru means teacher, of course, of the Sikhs, followed by the 9 gurus. And Sikhs follow the teachings of the 9 gurus. Sikhism emphasizes meditation and remembrance of the teachings of the 10 gurus, which can be expressed musically through the singing of hymns, or internally through meditation, reciting God's name. It teaches us all, regardless of religion, to control the following 5: Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Hankar. In English, lust, rage, greed, attachment, and ego. The Guru Granth Sahib, the Sikh holy book, have mentions from the Gita of the Hindu scripts, the Quran, the Islamic scripts, Christianity, and many other scholars have contributed in the compilation of the Guru Granth Sahib. Sikhs believe all humans to be equal, regardless of gender, color, or creed. Gurdwara, the Sikh place of worship, is open to all. The Golden Temple in Amritsar, you must have heard that many a time on the television, has 4 doors, one on each wall, signifying that north, south, east, west, wherever you come from, you are welcome to the Gurdwara. It's not only for Sikhs. Sikh believes in seva. Seva means selfless service for the benefit of all human beings. It's a belief that through service, you become closer to God. Service takes many forms. Example, serving free drinking water to all the passers-by in the hot weather. You must have seen Sikhs serving them at our Queen's funeral. Or serving the nation wherever you might live. Sikhs believe in sharing. Most Sikhs will keep money aside for donation. You can share free food, langar, in the Gurdwara after the service. As if you're visiting one of the Gurdwaras. Please, if you haven't, please do so. Sikhism encourages healthy living by consuming natural food. It encourages the natural environment and living in harmony with it. Sikhs should earn a livelihood with their own honorable efforts and live a family person's life. The Sikh symbol is the khanda, the double-edged sword flanked by two daggers, representing that Sikhs should take part in the worldly affairs wherever they live, and also pay attention to the spiritual powers, all bound by oneness of God. Sikhs have the right to defend themselves, their family, the community, and the country in which they live. All the above I mentioned, I believe, is common to all of us, regardless of religion. Thank you for listening to me.
Everybody, I'm Rona, I'm a spiritualist, and I haven't prepared any wonderful presentation, but listening to everybody, I just think there's been some wonderful, the basic principles of every religion have some wonderful aspects that people have brought out that are common with all of us. But all I'm going to do is just quickly go through on spiritualism, and we're based on the 7 principles of spiritualism. So I'm just going to give my thoughts and how I feel about them. Our first two, the first one is the fatherhood of God, because we worship God. And God is also in a lot of places referred to as the Great Spirit, because our second principle is the brotherhood of man, and that recognizes that within us, we all have our spirit is an aspect, a particle of the Great Spirit. So therefore, we are all brothers. And so, you know, there's no gender in it, but the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, we are all linked to the divine spirit. And then the one that makes spiritualism different is, I think, the communion of spirits and the ministry of angels, because part of our religion is to give evidence of survival. And there is a debate going on with some of the older, more learned spiritualists. I've heard them talk about this, saying, why do we have to give evidence of survival now? Because every religion understands that we live forever. You know, that is so pretty common with all the main religions, is that life continues. But we also communicate and get communications from spirit on philosophy and how we should be living our lives, and the teachings, and some wonderful stuff, which I prefer. I'm not really, a lot of people go to the church every week, they turn up every week, and they want messages, they want evidence of survival, which for some people is very important. When they're completely lost and they've lost some loved ones and they don't know, you know, where to go or where to turn to, then they come to the church, they get an evidential message, and they're happy that their loved ones are okay and that they will meet again, and they go off, and you know, that is all they need to be able to get on with their life. But other than that, it's the communication of philosophy, you know, which is important nowadays, I think. And of course, through that, we know about the continuous existence of the human soul. But an important one is personal responsibility, because whatever we do, we cannot say, oh, but it's not my fault, because at the end of the day, we are responsible for our actions, for our thoughts. If we think bad of somebody, then that has an impact going on. If we think bad thoughts and angry thoughts, that is as bad as doing something bad and angry. So, you know, maybe somebody is doing something and it's not something we can cope with, so we have to keep out of their area. You know, we don't engage with them, but we don't need to send them bad thoughts and be angry with them. We can rise above that and send out loving thoughts, send some love and light and a prayer for them, and then, you know, keep out of the way, but don't go shouting and yelling and talking badly behind their back, perhaps, because that is very negative action. And then, of course, our sixth principle is compensation and retribution hereafter for all the good and evil deeds done on earth. And that's karma. You know, whatever we do, if we do good, we'll move on, and things will be good for us in the long term. And if we do bad, then maybe we'll have to take a step back. Because of course we're all on the final one is eternal progress open to every human soul, and that's, you know, where we're all aiming to reach. We're all on the same journey to you know, get closer to God and to move up. And oops, sorry, my camera's playing up. And the more so I'm still here, but I'm trying to get my camera to go. The more we work on that and understand the compensation and retribution and personal responsibility, the more we can evolve. And some of the teachings on you know, when I've read philosophy books on spiritualism, which are actually some of them very easy to read and understandable, is, you know, as we progress, we move away from all these physical material aspects of our lives, and there is no color, no creed, no religion, no division on gender, sexuality, and that. We all just become love and light. So it's important in this life to be working towards that, because we're all going to get there. And we need to support each other. I think there's something in it. I think somebody wrote a poem, but I can't remember who it is now. But one of the lines in it is, we're all just walking each other home. And regardless of where we are in our lives now and what religion we are and what our work is or what we do, you know, whether it's a homeless man in the street that you know, is looking for help, or, you know, some company director that we're working for, we're just holding each other's hands and heading in the same direction. And we need to know, you know, that we're doing the best we can do. And that's what I get from our 7 principles and from spiritualism. And we've got some wonderful guides that have come through over the years to mediums, and books have been written, and they're still very relevant. It's all right. I'm trying to turn the sound off on my phone, and it keeps pinging at me, just at the wrong moment. But so all these guides come through, and mediums have written books going back, you know, to early in the last century. And they're still very relevant today, the teachings that we get in them. And that's what appealed to me about spiritualism. I was taught at the beginning, back in the 1980s, when I first found out about it, read, understand, and go, you know, make your own decision. You don't have to believe what other people tell you. Just make your own decision and make your own choices. So that's what I like about it. But I have to say, I listen to everybody here, and I think that's why I'm in Interfaith, because you can learn so much from everybody else.
Quakerism, of course, is an offshoot of Christianity, and it stems from the time of the religious wars. And if you go around the world, I think the countries with the largest number of Quakers in them are, I think it's Kenya, certainly an African country, and Bolivia. And the kind of Quakerism that you might find there, and in fact in Europe or in Moscow, there's Quakerism in Moscow, and we've had Quaker meetings with Kiev during the war. But the type of Quakerism that you find all over the world does vary from country to country. So I can really only tell you about English Quakerism. It's known as a mystical religion, which I don't like using that word because it makes it sound so airy-fairy. But I think the clue to Quakerism is the cloud of unknowing. We don't know enough about anything to say that we can be certain about anything. If you're thinking about science, new discoveries are being made all the time, and the universe is so absolutely vast, and we only have our poor human brains to work things out. The clue is not to be frightened of the cloud of unknowing. You have to accept it and work with it. So Quakers always try to have an open mind at all times. The meetings are famously silent until anybody is moved by the Spirit, by the Holy Spirit, to share thoughts, perhaps philosophy, perhaps a comment on experiences with the meeting. And the best kind of meeting I find is when one person's ministry sparks another ministry, which is slightly different, but on the same theme. And you can have a wonderful meeting. But of course, every Quaker meeting is different. And you can have a Quaker meeting where nobody speaks at all. As well as the meetings, we try to live our Quakerism all day, every day. And we have 5 testimonies which we follow, which are very similar to some of the mission statements from other religions. The first is we try to live simply. You won't find Quakers who have big expensive cars. And we try, for instance, to wear non-artificial fibres, but you don't see a lot of change in fashion in Quaker meetings either. It's just trying to live simply. We try to tell the truth as we know it all the time. And that means truth to power, but it also means truth when there's some kind of conflict. But if there is conflict between 2 members of the meeting or between sections of the meeting, the only way you can deal with that is actually to talk openly about it together and work, and you can express your truth, the other person can then express their truth. And we found some very, very good outcomes from using that technique. The next one is equality. There's complete equality in meetings, and there has been right from the start that men and women had equal positions, although in the Norwich Meeting House there are 2 meeting rooms, which are known as the 2 meeting houses, and one originally was the men's and the other was the women's, but that was for business. So there might have been business that the men needed to deal with, so they would do it in their room, and the women had their kind of business, which they dealt with separately. A new step that is being very important is sustainability. We have a very active sustainability group in Norwich meeting because we're very, very concerned about global warming and biodiversity and so on. So they're working constantly. Last year, we had a pilgrimage from Yarmouth to King's Lynn, which was joined by the Church of England and some other Christian groups. And some people walked all the way from Yarmouth to King's Lynn. I only walked part way. And it was just to broadcast. Now that it's getting difficult to demonstrate about things like global warming, a pilgrimage isn't a demonstration, but it does actually draw people's attention to problems. And another example of that was, and it involves the silence, when there was the big one in London about global warming, the big event, which ran over a weekend, I went to Westminster Meeting House, and it was so full that we couldn't have our meeting in the meeting house. We couldn't have it in the enormous corridor leading to the outdoors. So we had to just have part of the meeting on the street, outside on the pavement. And there were probably about 50 of us on the pavement. But what amazed me, we were just standing there in silent worship. But of course, we had got banners to say why we were there. And people kept coming and standing with us and just standing silently. And that was absolutely wonderful. And then, of course, the other big Quaker thing is peace, which is, they've been valued. I think there have been a lot of discussions about the war in Ukraine, because quite a lot of people felt, well, they didn't feel totally peaceful, in fact, about the invasion of the Russians. And we did have a couple of meetings dealing with that, separate from meetings for worship. And we concluded that although we would never actually take arms, and we wouldn't get involved in fighting, we would try to support the Ukrainians as much as we could. And quite a few Quakers in Norfolk have got the Ukrainians living with them. And we have Ukrainian lunches every 2 months. The other thing about Quakers is that we haven't got any kind of hierarchy. I'm, at the moment, the nominal church leader, which means when the church leaders meeting meets with the two bishops and the head of the Methodist Church and the Baptist Church and Salvation Army and me, and I'm only taking my turn. My name was, as it were, picked out of a hat, and it's a very privileged position to be in, but I shall be laying it down when my term's finished, and then I won't be, well, I'm not important anyway, but I'll be no more important than anybody else at all in the meeting.
As some of you know, I'm a pagan, and for us, it's the important things really are about relationship and experience rather than belief as such. We have a wide variety of beliefs, if you like, although they tend to be polytheist, many gods, verging to the animist even, and relationship with the earth, our mother, with our brothers and sisters and ancestors that are non-human, as well as those that are human. That's quite central to pagan ways of being, really. And so I, for instance, I'm very happy to be part of that interfaith environment forum. Everybody who's involved has a different title for it, I think, but, which was interfaith from its very beginning, because it was, the inspiration came from Muslims, and it was sparked off by the Anglican bishop. So from the start, it was an interfaith thing, which is fantastic, because we all have something to offer in, well, to be honest, a secular age that's part of the problem, I think. Anyway.
There's a group, an interfaith group in Norwich now, based around climate change. and he has been instrumental in getting it going and in attending it. He is, in fact, an international sort of person who works on climate change. He's written a book called Signs on the Earth, Islam, Modernity, and the Climate Crisis, in which he emphasizes the fact that Muslims, the people who have been concerned about the climate have been concerned about the climate for some time. And he also was a member of an organization that no longer functions called ARC, ARC, and he was at an international conference in 1995 in Japan, in which they had representatives from every religion and came up with concerns that, faith communities should take more of an active part in terms of dealing with climate change and, giving it a spiritual basis. So that's basically what I wanted to say on that, because obviously he then is part of a group that sees people not only wanting to be careful about the earth because of future generations, but careful about the earth because of their belief that it's a God-given asset, a gift that therefore needs looking after. But it's nice to think that, in fact, all the major religions are represented here, plus other religions as well. And can I thank you all very much for all your contributions, which have been varied, interesting, and reflect a lot of preparation. So thank you very much indeed.
Jesus, or is it just belief in one God?
No, it is belief in one God. We recognize Jesus as a highly evolved soul, but as far as we're all children of God. So we're all sons and daughters of God. Jesus was a son of God, but an incredibly highly evolved soul. And in some of the books which I referred to, there's a series of books that were communicated in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s by a guide that went under the name Silver Birch. And in his books and in his communications and in other books, Jesus is always referred to as the Nazarene. And it's quite often spoken about the teachings of the Nazarene. So yes, so we don't worship Jesus, but he's recognized as a great healer, a great medium, great teacher, but of the very high level. Yeah.
Thanks.
May I come in here, David?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to respond to Jeanette and Rona. Well, first to thank Rona for that reference to Jesus the Nazarene. Myself, I look at Christianity as, in some ways, an unintended consequence of Jesus's teaching, because I think he was a reformer intending to reform Judaism, and I think
Christianity, if you visualize the cross, it's like on two, if you like, dimensions. So the first vertical dimension is the relationship to God, whether it's through the Bible, preachers, so on and so forth. But it's then when you hear that words, and it's then how that informs how you interact with other Christians, which is, if you like, the other dimension, and then how you interact with other people. So how you interact with people that you might live around, people that you might meet with work and socially, and so on and so forth. So if you like, to a lot of Christians I know, it's not just going to the services, observing and so on and so forth, and understanding, you know, the parts of the Bible and so on. It's then how it informs your interaction with others. And I think that's, you know, relevant for a lot of other religions as well. Kind of, you know, we live in quite a complicated world these days. It's changing very fast. And, you know, I think for a lot of people, having religion as a way of understanding. I mean, as a lot of young Christians I know use the words like saying that the Bible is their GPS in life. You know, the idea that the kind of teachings that they get kind of then inform how they try and lead their lives.
Thank you. Barry and Maureen, do you feel that the Jewish religion gets the respect it deserves, in the sense that it was the beginning of Christianity, Islam built on it, and the Hebrew congregation in Norwich is a very relaxed congregation, and we're very grateful you're here with us this evening.
It's muted.
Yeah, it is a very relaxed congregation actually, and we do feel we do get respect from other religions. And listening to everybody tonight, you know, it is lovely to hear. There are so many similarities, which is really to be expected, I suppose, when you think about it. You know, people who are interested in any religion, you know, have got common wishes, I think.
I think that, you know, the sort of common ideals of moral and religious ideals are very much in common tonight, and we've all expressed our own personal views, and there's a lot of common ground, which is what you were out to set up, and it's been illustrated very well this evening, and very well by absolute respect for each and every one of us who have attended. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Well said.
Chris, did you want to say something? Chris Chamberlain? Sorry, I thought you put your thumb up. No?
David, I'll come in if I can.
Sorry, I was just unmuting. I was just echoing what Barry said. That's all. I found it, yeah, encouraging and very interesting. And well done, everyone. Let's all keep going. That's what I wanted to say. Let's keep going.
Miles, sorry, in a minute, Janet Miles.
Yeah, I'm just going to say one of the things I really love about teaching RE in school is that there are differences, and they provide focus of interest for children and for all of us, but there are also similarities, which has been, I think, the theme tonight, that people have mentioned that. Just the similarity about the whole approach to humanity, to caring for one another, thinking about peace, service above self. I love the concept of in Sikhism about sewa, and it's reflected in the langar and the work of the people in the Gurdwara. I love the concept of talking about peace that Jesus talked about, peace in the world. I love the idea of non-violence in Hinduism, and the Noble Eightfold Path in Buddhism, and what it teaches in the 5 precepts in Buddhism about thinking about other people and other creatures. And I think there's that common theme that we should. This is what the interfaith group's all about. It's working together, understanding that we're supporting humanity generally. Yeah, I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you.